A few weeks ago, a friend of mine bought this sword and let me try out for a little, and I was extremely satisfied by the feeling. So I went to Haft, which is this new maker, and I asked them if they wanted to send me one to try and test it and to review it, of course. A couple of weeks ago, I received my one finally, and I had the chance to try it out. So the feeling is of a relatively long blade, which feel slightly lighter, considering the fact that it's basically 1.5 kilos. So it's not a light blade, it's an average blade which goes a little toward the heavy side of the feathers, but I will say that it's an average feather. So it feels slightly lighter, but the balance is still around 6 to 7 centimeters, so it's very good also to represent a decent sword in terms of realism, let's say. So it is not a tool that does whatever you want. It has a certain feeling, it has a certain soul, as I generally use to describe this thing of having your sword which makes you go for a certain choice compared to doing whatever the hell you want just because it is very light. So it has a certain feeling, it has a soul, let's say, which is something which I really enjoy, but at the same time it is a refined one. I identified this in certain characteristics which are peculiar of this sword. First of all, the metal diminishes, the quantity of metal diminishes in a substantial way, and more on this later, the more we go toward the tip. So this is something that makes the blade behave in a slightly different way, even compared to a blade with the same amount of metal overall, but a different weight distribution. So this fact of decreasing the amount of metal toward the tip makes the sword behave in a slightly different way, even compared to swords which have the same point of balance. Chance is that also the shield, which is pretty wide and also defends the thumb really well, you have to consider this also, is another aspect which probably modifies the way in which the sword handles, in my personal opinion. So the Crosscut has a style which I really enjoy. This kind of, let's say, round shapes, the spheres at the sides helps a little the safety. I mean, not that receiving a Crosscut on the head when you are fencing is something pleasing anyway, but this increases a little bit the safety of the Crosscut overall, which is especially useful when you hit arms and hands, especially with the Crosscut, because you are in a hectic exchange, etc. This decreases a little the chance of injuring your partner. The pommel is, I would say, a relatively simple pear-shaped pommel. I don't have anything to say compared to other ones. The dimensions of the grip are very good, are the ones I personally prefer in general. The roughness of the grip at the very beginning was extreme, in a sense that it was extremely grippy, so much so that I was scared for my new gloves, but it set it up instantly. Now has a very good grip, actually, but I would say it's a normal kind of grip. So it is enough to not make your sword rotate in your hand when you're landing blows during a hectic exchange, but it is not too much, I would say. So very comfortable also in this sense. The flexibility on thrusting is very good, so it is extremely safe both for practicing and for sparring. So to land repetitive thrusts on your training partner or your instructor, it's very good in this sense. But here I have to add something which is extremely peculiar and extremely interesting. Most probably because of this difference in the quantity of metal, this sword tends to flex, and this is something that one of my students made me notice. This sword flexes lesser on your change of direction when you are fencing. So you have lesser this kind of effect in which when you are rotating your sword in a fast way, the blade tends to flex on the tip toward the direction in which you are coming from. And this makes the sword even more handy because you have lesser this kind of drag, which keeps the blade back compared to the direction in which you are moving. This is something which I found extremely useful, and I suspect is one of the two main aspects, considering also because it is related to the weight distribution which I mentioned before, the metal distribution. This is the second aspect that makes this feather shine so much while fencing, basically. This reflects a little also on Paris, so I felt that the sword is stable on Paris, even considering that it is like 80 to 100 grams lesser heavy compared to certain blades that I have at the club. But I was confident on my Paris, and I felt that the blade wasn't flexing too much on, you know, weird axis. So I really enjoyed these aspects. And again, I suspect it is related to this shape of the blade, which is very refined. Now, the last thing which needs to be mentioned is its durability. Now, I can't tell you much simply because this maker is young, is new actually, and the blade is new too, so I received it 15 days ago. What I can tell you is that I ended up fencing with it multiple times in these days. I tried also to bash quite hard sometimes to test the blade. There are no major blurs in the blade. It seems good enough at least for the practice that I carry out frequently for hard sparring. But of course we have to take in consideration this beautiful shape, again, which I described before, which of course, as anything in life, has pros and cons, I suspect. So there is lesser metal on this part here. Maybe it may be lesser sturdy in this section compared to other feathers which have more material here. This is obvious, I will say, but it needs to be said. So it's like a racing car to me. So it is something that feels very good, that moves very well. You can change direction with it very fast, and this kind of thing will probably have some trade-off. So I suspect that maybe in this section it will be slightly lesser sturdy, and again I put the accent on slightly lesser sturdy than other feathers, but of course I'm not sure. Maybe the quality of the steel will keep it alive for many years, and I will fence with it far more years than with other feathers. Who knows? I have to try it out. Maybe I will try to update you in the future on the sturdiness of this feather, because I suspect it's one of these blades that may require a second update on its qualities, because it is very good in my opinion. So the price of this feather is not super cheap, actually is 330 euros, but without VAT. So you have to add the taxes to it, and of course the expedition. But I suspect that it may be worth the cost, because the qualities of this sword are extremely good, so are extremely satisfying. But I still have to see how it behaves in the year to come, let's say. So if it breaks, because I fence a lot, I will try to fence only or as much as possible with this, just to test it out, but also because I'm enjoying it so much, and I will see what happens at it in a year or so. Very good, people. I hope you will find this video useful in some ways. Thanks for watching as always. Remember to check my Patreon link in the description if you want to support me and the channel especially, and if you want to see more of my content in the future, both on the channel and of course on Patreon, in which you can find a lot of exclusive contents there. Thanks for watching as always, and see you next time.